Hello to all our participants here today. We're just on time to get started with today's Minamata Online session on implementing trade-related provisions of the Minamata Convention. So we're very, very happy to have you here and to have a really wonderful group of panelists who will join me and my colleagues here at the Secretariat to provide what I hope is a nice rounded set of information and updates to you on the work being undertaken under the Minamata Convention on Mercury trade. So before we get started, I just want to give you a few housekeeping notes. So I think you're all very familiar with the way we run Minamata Online. But just to update you, so if we open the floor for discussion or questions, and if you want to take the floor, please just click the raised hand icon next to your name on the participant panel. And then I will call your name based on the order of hands, but please, once you are called on, you can unmute yourself and speak. And then when you're done, please re-mute yourself and lower your hand through the hand icon. And then you can also at any point during this presentation, put a question in the chat box and send it to everyone. And we'll do our best to answer. And we will also try to have time for questions and answers at the end of today's session. If you need any technical assistance, just put a message in the chat box and our hosts will help you out. And please note that this session is being recorded and broadcast live on YouTube. And at the end, you will receive a survey. So we invite you to fill that out so that we can keep improving the Minamata Online series. We're now in the Minamata Online, I guess, 4th series in 2024. And this is, we've started back in May, I think May. And so we've had a number of Minamata Onlines, and we're always open to suggestions and topics that parties and stakeholders might wish to discuss further through one of these sessions. And please note that all the presentations, as well as the recording of this session, will be available both on our website and on our YouTube channel within the next 2 days. So we invite you to look back at previous sessions for other topics of interest. So now I'd like to introduce what we are going to talk about today in this session. We will talk about the Mercury trade-related obligations in Article 3 of the Minamata Convention. And while I'm introducing that topic, I just want to give a little bit of background. So Article 3 of the Minamata Convention contains control measures aimed at limiting the global supply of mercury. And these are to complement and reinforce the demand reduction control measures in Articles 4 through 7 of the Convention, as well as the emissions and releases control obligations and waste management, contaminated sites, and sound storage obligations. So, Article 3 talks about mercury available in the global market. And to do this supply management, the convention regulates the trade of elemental mercury. And there have been a number of global and regional assessments of mercury flows. And from these assessments, as well as from reporting by our parties and work on the ground by stakeholders, we know that mercury is traded both legally and illegally. The government of Indonesia, as the host of Minamata Convention COP4 in 2022-3, or I think 2022, sorry, launched the Bali Declaration on combating illegal trade in mercury. And so our parties have maintained a focus on this important topic of mercury trade through a couple of very important decisions taken at COP5 last year. and we'll update you on those later in this session. So I do want to note that the convention's trade provisions in Article 3 do not apply to trade in mercury added products or mercury waste, because these are addressed elsewhere in the convention. So they're outside the scope of today's session. And Article 3 also does not apply to mercury used for laboratory scale research or reference standards, naturally occurring trace quantities of mercury that may be found in metals, ores, coals, or chemical products. So we will be focusing and providing you more information on the obligations in Article 3 on mercury trade. We'll talk about the trade forms and guidance. We'll talk about the recent COP decisions, as I mentioned, on mercury trade and related intersessional work. We'll also talk about the implementation support to parties and stakeholders. And then moving on from that, we're very happy to have with us Mr. Ramon Jimenez Galicia, who is the task manager for Latin America in the UNEP Chemicals and Health Branch and the manager of the Jeff Mercury Trade Project in Latin America. So he will talk to you about that project. And we're also very pleased to have Unik Purwandari from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in the Republic of Indonesia, as well as Itsuki Kuroda from the Ministry of Environment, Japan, talking about the national and bilateral work related to the Bali Declaration on combating illegal trade in mercury and related work on the Article 3 implementation. So I hope after all that, we will still have some times for questions and answers and discussion. This is formally scheduled for 1 hour, 15 minutes, but we are able to go over up to 1 hour and a half should there be discussion or should we go over time. So with your indulgence, I'd like to move on now and turn to my colleague Lara Onyibene, who is our legal officer here at the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Lara Onyibene. I'm the legal officer with the convention, and I would like to give you a brief overview of trade-related provisions in the convention. So the Minamata Convention on Mercury has one objective: to protect the human health and the environment from anthropogenic emissions and releases of mercury and mercury compounds. It was adopted in 2013 and entered into force in 2017. As of today, we have 148 parties, and you can see a map here on the slide. Moving on to the next slide. With respect in particular to trade-related provisions, I would like to focus on Article 3 on mercury supply sources and trade, which requires parties to take measures to control trade of mercury. So as Marianne mentioned, elemental mercury with other parties, as well as with non-parties. And also it reinforces demand reduction control measures, as mentioned by Marianne, that are contained in other articles of the convention, including mercury added products in Article 4 and artisanal and small-scale gold mining in Article 7. And this is one of the largest sectors where elemental mercury is used. Moving on to the next slide. Here is a summary of Article 3 trade-related provisions. So parties are not to allow the export of mercury unless the importing country provides written consent. The mercury is for an allowed use or environmentally sound storage, and all other conditions under Article 3.6 are met. Also, parties are not to allow the import of mercury without government consent, ensuring both the mercury source and proposed use are allowed under the convention and also under applicable national or domestic law. And also, parties are to restrict the export and use of mercury from primary mercury mining so that it is not available for use in ASGM. So these are three key points and key obligations that are contained in Article 3, and these come into effect immediately upon entry into force of the Convention for the party. Moving on to the next slide, we can continue. Under Article 3, the Convention allows for parties to issue consent either on an import-by-import basis or through a general notification of consent, which is to be provided to the Secretariat. A general notification of consent may include terms and conditions and may be revoked at any point in time by the party or the non-party. To date, the Secretariat has received 4 notification of general consent from Canada, Japan, Thailand, and the United States. So for all other exports, the consent is to be given on an import-by-import basis. So in the next few slides, I would like to show you a few scenarios where this happens. See, moving on to the next slide. So the first scenario, we have the exporter as a party, and the importer is also a party. So in this scenario, the exporter can export to another party, provided that Mercury provided that the importing party has provided written consent, and also that Mercury is for use allowed under the convention or for environmentally sound interim storage. If these conditions are met, then the export can take place. The next scenario in the next slide is where the exporter is a party and the importer is a non-party. Again, trade exports are allowed only if the importing non-party has provided written consent, and if the importing non-party certifies it has measures in place to protect human health and the environment. Also, the importing party has to ensure its compliance with the storage and final disposal, and that the mercury is for use allowed under the convention or for environmentally sound interim storage. And then moving on to the last and third scenario, where both importing and exporting, so the exporting party, apologies, is a non-party, but the importing party country is a party. In this case, again, exports are allowed only if the importing party has provided written consent, and the exporting non-party has provided a certification that the mercury is not from primary mercury mining or from decommissioning of chloroalkali facilities. This is a list of the forms that are to be used for granting consent on an import-by-import basis. We have Form A, form for the provision of the written consent by a party to the import of mercury. Form B, which is the form for the provision of written consent by a non-party to the import. Form C, which is the form for non-party certification of the source of mercury to be exported to a party. And finally, we also have Form D, which is a template form for the general notification of consent that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. All these forms, along with the guidance on how to fill in these forms, is available on our website, along with the register of the all general notification of consent received so far. These forms and guidance have been adopted by COP1. Also relevant to these forms are the 2 articles of the convention can be highlighted here. Article 17, which requires parties to designate a national focal point for information exchange. And this includes with respect to trade consent. So it is for the national focal points to actually fill in the forms as relevant and sign them and to issue consent. And then Article 21, which provides that each party shall include in its national reports information showing that all these requirements under Article 3 have been met including by providing copies of the forms issued and signed by the national focal points. So moving on to the next slide, I we'll hand over to Marianne. We will give you an overview of recent updates on the implementation of Article 3, starting with recent COP5 decisions on the matter. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Laura. And many of you will recall our 5th Conference of the Parties, which took place just in end of October, early November of last year. The first decision adopted at COP5 was a very important and rather groundbreaking decision on Indigenous people and the impacts of Mercury on Indigenous peoples as well as local communities. And there's a lot of follow-up going on that. And then the second decision that was adopted, I think as an indication of the importance our parties place on this topic, was on Mercury supply sources and trade. So the decision 5/2, among other things, encourages parties to promote joint campaigns and training opportunities to strengthen the capacity of enforcement officers, including customs officers, to control Mercury trade at the national level. It also invites parties to submit to the Secretariat by March 2025 information on experiences and challenges faced in the implementation of Article 3, as well as information on activities undertaken in relation to the Bali Declaration on combating illegal trade in mercury, which I mentioned earlier. And it also requests the Secretariat to compile that information so that COP6 can take a look at that and consider that information. And then in addition, in the next slide, the decision also requested the Secretariat, subject to the availability of resources, to do quite a bit of work to support parties in this further implementation of Article 3 on mercury trade, including to support parties in better understanding the trade provisions, as well as their interrelation with other articles of the convention, and the use of the trade forms that were adopted by the COP way back at COP1, in particular with respect to imports from non-parties. Also to work on awareness raising activities related to provisions of the convention on allowed uses and sources of mercury, and to develop guidance to assist parties in identifying, managing, and reducing mercury trade from primary mercury mining. So we have gotten a good start on these activities, and in particular, thanks to the generous support of the European Union as part of its project of support to the capacity building and technical assistance program of the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention. So I will describe some of these activities in turn, but first I want to, before we leave this slide, I want to point out that with respect to the development of guidance to assist parties in managing trade from primary mined mercury, we have gotten a start on that activity through the engagement of a consultant who I believe is in our audience here today, to sort of scope that study and get it started, and further work on that guidance will continue later this year and into next year, so that we have something for consideration by COP6, and we hope it'll be very robust. And we welcome any suggestions and ideas that that parties and stakeholders might have towards that end. And then also on the right of this screen, you can see that we have now a fact sheet on mercury trade. This is meant just to have a visual and narrative snapshot of the mercury trade issue and what the convention does about that. So that was also done through support from the European Union, and is now available on our website and for use in in your further trainings or engagements at the national and regional levels. And in the next slide, some other activities that we've been undertaking and are now advancing. So today's session is one example of Minamata Online. You can go back on our website and search past Minamata Online sessions, including one we gave in 2020 when we were all trying to be quite creative about providing information in electronic methods. So we did back then a session that is similar to today's session on the Article 3 trade provisions, as well as efforts of various partners. So we encourage you to look back at that particular session just to reinforce what you're hearing here today. Also, we're very pleased that in early May, we were able to launch what's called Minamata Tools. This is a training platform through the United Nations Systems Staff College, and it's free of charge. You can register, take it at your own speed. There are 4 modules. One is an introductory module, and the second module is on Mercury supply and trade. And then there's also modules on mercury added products and industrial processes and mercury emissions. In the future, we may add more modules to this, but these are available now. And we also have some of the modules translated into Spanish and French. They're not on the platform in languages, but the content is available for your use upon request. So we encourage you to take the Minamata Tools modules and those, as well as the items on the right-hand side of this center panel, were all funded again through the project on capacity building and support to parties that is funded by the European Union. And we're very pleased to have been able to put the Minamata tools together, as well as training on mercury added products. So we have a full and extensive slide deck in 6 languages on mercury added products, and recordings of the sessions that were given also in 6 languages on that. And with the financial support of Switzerland, we'll be doing a similar series on mercury waste. And then in cooperation with the World Customs Organization, we are developing a module on the World Customs Organization's CLIC platform. This is specifically designed for and accessible by customs officers through WCO. And so we will let you know when that launches, but it will be in the coming months this year. So we're really happy about that, and we hope that you can all put that to use at the national and regional levels as you engage customs officials in raising their awareness about the Minamata Convention. And then for quite some time now, there has been on Informia platform an introductory course on the Minamata Convention, and a course more recently on mercury and gender that was funded by Sweden. So we're really pleased with the support the Secretariat has received in order to develop these materials for you. But they're quite new, so really we would welcome feedback and suggestions that you might have on any of these. And then moving on to the next slide, we've had some more recent activities, again, through the EU-funded project. So we will be providing a chapter on the Minamata Convention in the Green Customs Guide to Multilateral Environmental Agreements. So this is a a sort of a narrative guide as opposed to the click platform on training. And we're also doing the scoping, as I mentioned earlier, of the draft guidance on controlling trade of mercury from primary mining. And very recently, we were able to hold on the margins of the Planet Gold Global Forum on artisanal and small-scale gold mining, which took place just earlier this month in the Philippines. We did a workshop on mercury trade, and it was a really robust discussion. We don't have the report available yet, but it will be very soon. And we're so pleased that we were able to gather such a impressive and knowledgeable set of participants who are working day in and day out on this issue. And some of the key takeaways were that it is really advantageous to collaborate regionally on mercury trade and establishing common entry and exit flow points and procedures. And also that the traceability of mercury in the field can be achieved or at least advanced by adopting international guidelines and standards at a localized level. So we are hoping that the momentum from this workshop really carries forward to further implementation. And in the next slide, I want to turn back to Lara to describe this decision of the COP.
Thank you, Marianne. Yes, so the second decision of the COP5 that focused on mercury trade was decision MC5/3, where the Secretariat was requested to develop or initiate a study on the global supply, production, trade, and use of mercury compounds. This is in the context of paragraph 13 of Article 3, which requires the COP to consider if specific mercury compounds should be made subject to the trade procedure, which I described earlier, which is for now only applicable to elemental mercury. So the Secretariat has started developing this study with the support of a consultant, with the aim of presenting the final report at COP6. And this is being done thanks to the generous contribution of Canada, who is funding the production of the whole study. Thank you very much, and back over to you, Marianne.
Thank you so much, Lara. And I think we will have much more for you later this year or early next year about the follow-ups to those decisions, including the compound study. And we are receiving additional support from the government of Spain for that, for both the studies that we mentioned. Well, the primary mined mercury guidance and the compound study. So in the next slide, I just want to give you also a snapshot of the specific international program and how it can be used in a project to address trade. We do have one regional project that addresses trade in both mercury added products and in elemental mercury. So it's an Article 3 and an Article 4 project, and it includes 3 parties: Senegal, who has the lead on the project, as well as Togo and Burkina Faso. So it's a very nice way of ensuring that the trade flows which happen regionally are addressed regionally. And we're quite optimistic about important outcomes out of this project, because it is working to develop regulations and strengthening the control system, and also training all the relevant stakeholders, including customs officials. And the 4th round of applications to the SIP is now open. The deadline is quite soon, 31st of July, for applications. So please, if you are an eligible party, or if you are someone that works with eligible parties, please make sure they're aware that support may be eligible through the SIP for their project concept. And the funding envelope for this round of applications, we hope will be sufficient to fund all the well formulated and well justified projects coming forward to the governing board. But as we know from the third round of applications, the governing board has a very challenging time ahead of it to match the availability of funding for projects with the good projects that should be funded. So we encourage more donations to the specific international program, and we encourage really strong applications. And then finally, I just want to close the Secretariat's part of this presentation by showing you, yes, on the website, where you can find the forms and guidance that Lara mentioned. So if you go to our implementation tab, and then through that to the COP guidance and forms, you will find all the trade forms, as well as the guidance for using the trade forms right there. And do remember that these information on how parties are regulating their mercury trade needs to be submitted along with national report as part of national reporting to the convention. And our website is available in 3 languages. So if you can click on the language tab to also get Spanish and French versions of all these materials. So with that, I hope we haven't provided too much information in too short a time, but now we can turn to the really interesting part of this Minamata Online session. So I'd like to reintroduce Ramon Jimenez Galicia from UNEP, who is managing a very interesting Jeff-funded project on mercury trade in Latin America. Ramon, over to you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues, everyone. Again, as Marianne mentioned, my name is Ramon. I work for UNEC's Chemicals and Health branch from Industry and Economy Division. Today, I will talk about mercury trade in the Latin America and the Caribbean region status of the project, and to notify you that it will begin implementation this year. Now, just in developing the project, we considered the Minamata Convention, which is a global framework aimed at significantly reducing mercury emissions from human activities, and specifically to Article 3, which emphasizes the importance of controlling, regulating, and phasing out the supply and trade of mercury to decrease its global availability. Reports on illegal mercury trade in the LAC region are scarce, yet confiscations report account for its existence. A general overview is shown in this diagram. Understanding mercury flows in Latin America is crucial due to significant supply sources such as mining, byproduct mercury from metal refining, chlor-alkali plants, recycled mercury, and accumulated stocks. With 22 parties to the Minamata Convention and many artisanal small-scale gold mining sites, the region needs strict control and regulation of mercury trade. Legal and illegal trade data, particularly from customs, indicate a shift to intra-regional trade, with Mexico becoming a key supplier following bans by the European Union and United States. In 2018, according to the UN Commodity Trade Statistics Database, also known as Comtrade, Mexico, Russia, United Arab Emirates, and Canada were major exporters, feeding the market with more than 90 tons of mercury, while Bolivia and India were main importers with more than 150 tons. Next one, please. As the main supplier, Mexico's mercury exports primarily go to South American countries such as Bolivia, Colombia, Peru, Argentina, and Cuba, and to also markets in Asia and Africa. Shown data during 2010 to 2019 from registered trading companies dedicated to ore handling and production of primary mercury on non-industrial line of business that commercialize metallic mercury and individuals where their tax regime does not allow identification of business line show significant exports, potentially for ASGM activities, despite administrative restrictions and export permit reductions. Next one. Now, where is located the main mercury resources in Mexico? Well, in Mexico, Sierra Gordas region, located in the state of Querétaro, artisanal mercury mining is prevalent, with verified and unverified mines producing significant mercury emissions. Despite operational closures forced by the Minamata Convention, where restricting mercury export permits have recently reached to 2.5 kilograms in 2023, miners continue extracting cinnabar and processing mercury independently, feeding illegal markets through unregulated trade from at least these 19 identified mines. Next one. Now, mercury demand in artisanal small-scale gold mining remains high, with constant supply through imports over the past 15 years. According to Comtrade, from 1996 to 2017, major importers included Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Guyana, Bolivia, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Suriname, importing a total of 6,923 tons, at least in the Latin American region. Next one. Now, which are the main issues in the region? Show that basically 55% of global emissions of mercury are using ASGM, and they come from the Latin American region. There's also an unregistered informal mercury trade at the regional level, which again is linked to the ASGM activities. Also, countries are in the process of learning about mercury import-export provisions. And also, there's these different entities involved in the mercury trade change, such as customs, police, ministries, mercury suppliers, ASGM operators, gold buyers, mining cooperatives, private sector, and international experts. Now, recently, we have received the CE endorsement approval for this KEF project, which has the name Accelerate Minamata Convention Compliance through Improved Understanding and Control of Mercury Trade in Latin America. Since this project is regional, in this first approach, we aim to focus in 6 countries, which are Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Honduras, Mexico, and Peru. The project duration is expected to last 3 years. The project financing will be $3 million provided by the GEF, and the co-financing achieved for this project with countries and international partners is around $16 million. The executing agency for this project is the Basel Convention Coordinating Center, Stockholm Convention Regional Center for Latin America and the Caribbean. And also, the main objective of this project is to accelerate Minamata Convention compliance through a better understanding of mercury trade trends in Latin America and promotion of regional cooperation towards an improved control of major mercury flows. Next one. The project will consist of 3 components, which will be the first one will be to coordinated strategies on mercury trade issue at national and regional level. The second component will involve legal instruments of mercury trade and control at national and regional levels to improve them and to reinforce them and to have a common understanding between these 6 countries. And the third component will be this regional cooperation to reduce mercury trade and sustainability of project results through a common understanding and a common platform, which will be hosted with the support of the Global Mercury Partnership and also the countries that are part of this project. Now, to which will be the activities that the project will develop to address the formal and informal trade of mercury? Well, the project will develop will enhance legal frameworks, will also review national laws and regulations, will also identify and categorize mercury sources as per Article 3 of the Minamata Convention, will also engage key institutions and stakeholders involved in the mercury supply, trade, and tracking. So we will be covering all the mercury chain flow. Countries will also update data on legal and illegal mercury trade volumes and routes. Countries will also identify key weaknesses in trade control systems and consent procedures. And also countries will develop a strategy for tracking mercury domestically and regionally. So if we are aware that some of these activities will be challenging, but we are confident that with all the countries involved, the main authorities and the partners involved in the mercury chain, also from NGOs and the support of the Global Mercury Partnership and Minamata Secretariat, we think that we will have a good implementation of this project, because it will be important for this experience to build partnerships toward the regional approaches in the LAC region. Also, to update and validate data, partnerships with national and international stakeholders across the mercury supply chain are essential. Also, information exchange on mercury production, export, trade, and uses should be promoted at the national and regional levels. Also, this early identification of key stakeholders, which we did in the previous preparation phase, will include stakeholders such as customs, police, ministries, gold suppliers, ASGM operators, gold buyers, ASGM cooperatives, private sector, and international experts is crucial. These agencies that we are listing on this slide are key partners in the region, actively engaged in combating illegal mercury trade and generating reliable information and databases. Among these, I would like to highlight the Andean community, which stands out for its comprehensive focus on trade, foreign policies, border development, and economic and sustainable development. And just for the record, I would like to add that in 2019, it established the Andean Mercury Observatory to regulate official mercury information and facilitate information exchange on the production, export, trade, and use of mercury among its member countries, which at the moment are Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. And for this project implemented, and before we begin activities, we will involve also Honduras and Mexico as well. So from my side, it's all. Thank you very much for your time, and happy to answer questions in the follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon. This project has so many great examples of ways in which countries can work together and engage all the relevant stakeholders, and the wonderful idea of engaging the Andean Observatory for the information requirements to make this work successful. It's really great, and we do hope that other regions will also engage in projects that do this sort of work. And let me take this opportunity to remind participants that the Global Environment Facility is one part of our financial mechanism, the other part being the SIP. And we're halfway through the GEF 8 period right now, and there is quite a healthy amount of money allocated to the Minamata Convention still in GEF 8. So good project proposals we hope will be forthcoming in the next months, so that allocation of funding can be fully and effectively used. So with that, I think we'll hold questions until the end. Because right now I'd really like to, and I'm so happy that she could join us, I'd like to introduce Ibu Unik Purwandari from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia, who's been very engaged in this topic, and I'd really like to give her the floor now for her presentation. Thank you, Unik. I think we can't hear you yet. Yeah, I think you still need to unmute.
Hello.
Hi, good.
Okay. Thank you, Marianne. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to share information on Indonesian experience in managing of Mercury. I will share my presentation. Sorry. Okay, it's okay now. Okay.
Yes, we see it, but it's not in presentation mode, so you might want to switch to,
To the presentation.
but we can see it clearly.
Okay. Looking at the outline of my presentation, I will start with an overview of Indonesia, then continue with potential illegal mining in Indonesia, national strategy and commitment that have been made by the government of Indonesia, and challenges in managing of Mercury. Indonesia is an archipelagic country that has 17,000 islands, 38 provinces, and 550 districts or cities with geographic differences. This geographical condition provide Indonesia with a significant variety of natural resources like gold, silver, cinnabar, and etc. This map shows the potential of gold and cinnabar reserve in Indonesia. In line with the mandate in Article 3 of the Minamata Convention, Indonesia secured the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources has never issued a cinnabar permit because of the potential area of cinnabar in Indonesia is within the National Reserve Area. It means that mining is not permitted. Therefore, all the cinnabar mines in Indonesia are illegal. Indonesia has a potential source of cinnabar as the country has many volcanoes and significant geothermal activity. Indonesia has more than 100 active volcanoes, making it one of the countries with the most volcanic activity in the world. This condition creates the right environment for the formation of various types of mineral, including cinnabar. One of the cinnabar mines in Indonesia is in Maluku province. Indonesia is an archipelagic country that has 17,000 islands, 38 provinces, and 500 districts or cities with geographic differences. This geographical condition provides Indonesia with a significant variety of natural resources like gold, silver, cinnabar, and etc. This map shows the potential of gold and cinnabar reserve in Indonesia. Next slide. In line with the mandate in Article 3 of the Minamata Convention, Indonesia secured the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources has never issued a cinnabar permit because of the potential area of cinnabar in Indonesia is within the National Reserve Area. It means that mining is not permitted. Therefore, all the cinnabar mines in Indonesia are illegal. Next slide. Indonesia has a potential source of cinnabar as the country has many volcanoes and significant geothermal activity. Indonesia has more than 100 active volcanoes, making it one of the countries with the most volcanic activity in the world. This condition creates the right environment for the formation of various types of mineral, including cinnabar. One of the cinnabar mines in Indonesia is in Maluku province. Next slide. Beside of cinnabar, this map shows the condition of illegal ASGM in Indonesia. There are various illegal ASGM in around 156 district or city in 30 province in Indonesia. So they can cause environmental damage and pollution. Next slide. This is a national strategy and our commit. Next slide. As a manifestation of Indonesia commitments to addressing Mercury, the President then issued the presidential instruction in March 2017 regarding the ban of mercury use in artisanal mining. 7 instructions from President Joko Widodo include review the governance of artisanal mining and small-scale gold inside and outside the forest area. Secondly, the use of mercury in artisanal mining should be banned, and enact Minamata Convention agreement regarding the use of mercury in artisanal good mining, but also in medium and large-scale mining activities. Fourth, regulate the trade and distribution of mercury, including the tightening of mercury importation supervision. Five, educate miners about the danger of mercury to humans and the environment. Six, find solution, not only curb illegal mining practices, but also look for alternative livelihood for miners. Seven, communities contaminated by mercury must be given immediate medical attention. Next slide. The following is a scheme of strategies that the Indonesian government is undertaking in its effort to reduce and eliminate the use of mercury at the national level. We emphasize effort in four key components, namely strengthening of national regulation, policy, and institution. Indonesia already has presidential decree on national action plan pengurangan and penghapusan mercury and has formed Committee of Mercury Research and Monitoring. Secondly, supply and trade control are carried out with eradicating illegal mercury trade on online platform and illegal mercury seizure. Thirdly, transfer of gold processing technology by means of formalization, replacing technology with mercury-free technology and institutional building. Fourthly, transfer of livelihood by exploring the potential of alternative natural resources and local wisdom, community empowerment, creative economy enterprises. Next slide. Other efforts made to reduce and eliminate mercury are enforcement action against mercury trafficking and illegal primary mercury mining, such as small-scale gold mining in Gunung Botak, Buru Island, and has been operationally closed by police and local government, but then reactivated in October 2018. Illegal mining activities in West Seram Maluku were successfully curbed by police and military joint force in December 2017. This area is suspected to be the major source of cinnabar illegal production. Next slide. Apart from that, several activities to reduce and eliminate mercury continue to be carried, including stopping the circulation of mercury, prosecution of illegal mercury trade, also continue to be encouraged. From 2017 until now, 34.9 tons of elemental mercury and 36.29 tons of cinnabar have been confiscated. Dissemination of information to miners about the danger of mercury is also ongoing. This is to make illegal miners aware of the potential dangers of mercury exposure. Next slide. Related to the illegal mercury trade that has become a global concern, at the COP4 of the Minamata Convention, Indonesia initiated a non-binding declaration that raised the issue of illegal mercury trade, named Declaration on Combating Global Illegal Trade in Mercury. The declaration was launched to encourage international cooperation in combating the global illegal trade in mercury. The Bali Declaration has three objectives, namely short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. At the moment, the Bali Declaration is aiming to meet its short-term objective, which is mainstreaming to meet the combat global trade of mercury. Respectively, the mid-term will be focused on focusing concrete cooperation, while the long-term will propose an international governance to combat illegal trade mercury. Next slide. Some of Indonesia's efforts for implementing the Bali Declaration are cooperation with Indonesia E-Commerce Association, or IDEA, to address the illegal mercury trade on online platforms such as Marketplace. Some of the steps that have been taken include regular monitoring and takedown of illegal mercury trade contacts, as well as socialization of the dangers of mercury and mercury trade regulation to online platform owners. These slides show the progress of reducing illegal mercury trade on online platform from 2022 to 2023. In 2023, the illegal mercury trade have significantly decreased. Indonesia endeavored to continue regular monitoring to combat mercury trading on this online platform. Next slide. We also, in cooperation with Ministry of Environment Japan, conduct a report on technical needs survey on the implementation of the Bali Declaration. This report provides an overview of the status of mercury trade in Indonesia and also the possible technical cooperation between the government of Indonesia and Japan. In addition, we also organize focus group discussion on the challenges and good practices for combating illegal trade in mercury, which was attended by the national stakeholders as well as the Minamata Secretariat, UNEP, UNODC, WCO, and others. This cooperation also aimed to increase national capacity and foster international and interagency cooperation related to the implementation of the Bali Declaration on combating global illegal trade in mercury. Next slide. Besides that, the national level, Indonesia draft a milestone to implement the Bali Declaration 2022 to 2027 with the following timetable: identification of problem, facilitate communication and relevant stakeholders, set and or improve the management of database, develop a policies and program, institutional Bali Declaration mechanism, implementing Bali Declaration, and monitoring and evaluation. Next slide. Apart from several efforts made by mining priority areas, Indonesia also regulates other priority areas such as health, energy, and manufacturing. This is stated in the Presidential Decrees number 21, year 2019 on National Action Plan for Reducing and Eliminating Mercury in Indonesia. This National Action Plan is an annual work plan document to reduce and eliminate mercury at the national level. One of the mandates in this National Action Plan is the obligation for local government to prepare local action plans because the local government know the condition in their regions. Next slide, please. This slide shows that the UNEP report of global mercury supply, trade, and demand mentioned that Indonesia export less than 20 tons of mercury in previous years. In 2015, Indonesia document mercury export of 284 tons, mostly to Hong Kong, Switzerland, Singapore, and Vietnam. This is a disturbing report because Indonesia has never legally exported mercury as a material. All of the export of mercury is a mercury as a waste. Regarding the data or information on mercury trade in Indonesia that has been published previously, we need to clarify that since 2015, the Ministry of Trade has not issued an import approval for the import of mercury commodities with AS code 28054000. All of the mercury distribution in Indonesia comes from illegal trade. Next slide, please. The effort to eliminate mercury use is not easy. There are many challenges faced by the Indonesia government in dealing with mercury, including the importance of eliminating the demand of mercury use in small-scale gold mining, because as long as there is demand for elemental mercury in SDM, it will encourage the supply of illegal cinnabar as raw material for mercury. Indonesia has so many small ports that it's necessary to monitor the trade of illegal cinnabar originating from these small ports and local source. integrated monitoring mechanism with relevant ministries or agencies to ensure the implementation of Mercury trade regulation in Indonesia is not yet available. The need to monitor and the trade of Mercury and its derivative products in online media. There is no technology or final storage for Mercury in Indonesia, so that the confiscated Mercury is currently still stored in each region. Next slide. That's all my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Terima kasih. Back to Marian. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Yunik. This was a really great and comprehensive glimpse at the efforts as well as the ongoing challenges faced by Indonesia, and similar to almost all our parties in tackling this really difficult issue, but parties doing so much work to advance implementation of Article 3. So now I'd like to turn to Suki Kuroda. She is going to give us an update on some of the work being supported by the government of Japan to further tackle the challenges faced by parties on illegal trade on Mercury. Suki, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Sorry, my reception, the Wi-Fi network might not be really well. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you very well.
Oh, I'm glad to hear. Okay, thank you very much for the interest of the time. I would like to be very brief, but my presentation is in relation with the Indonesian government's presentation, Ibu Yunik, hello Ibu Yunik. We work very closely together, and we would like to briefly introduce the key summary of focus group discussion on the challenges and good practice for combating illegal trade on Mercury, which we conducted with the Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Next slide, please. By the way, I'm Suki from Japanese Ministry of the Environment, as Marianne just introduced me. Next slide.
It's
the
showing
slide
on
has
our
not
side.
yet been moving, but
It's
okay,
showing
great.
on our side, the Moyai initiative. Thanks.
Yes, so I have been talking about this initiative so many times, so many of you might have already know, but the Japanese government has declared at the diplomatic conference that has been held in Kumamoto and Minamata in Japan in 2014 that we are going to support developing countries implementation initiative. And also we are going to share the experience from Minamata in order for us to not to repeat the same history that had happened in Minamata again. So since 2014, we have been committed to support developing countries initiative by implementing the needs study in 10 countries to start with. And since then, our support to developing countries has been expanded. But the main focus has been the Asia-Pacific region. But recently, our activity has expanded to African region as well, and which we are very excited about. Next slide, please. And based on this Moyai initiative, we have started the cooperation activities with Indonesian government since 2014, as soon as we declared this commitment to support developing countries. Especially for us, Indonesian government has been very important because they have had such a leadership to tackle Mercury-related matters, and also they have implemented such an initiative that has just been explained by Ibu Yunik. So our support is mainly focused on supporting the implementation of Indonesia National Action Plan. In other words, we are not telling them what to do in a way, but we would like to support what they are already trying to do by providing our knowledge and also introducing our technologies as well. Next slide, please. And this part of MOIAI Initiative Cooperation, our Ministry of the Environment of Japan, MOEJ, and also Indonesia Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and also Basel and Stockholm Convention Regional Center for Southeast Asia, BCRC SEA, which is located in Jakarta, co-organized the focus group discussion on the challenges and good practices for the combating illegal trade on mercury last July. So just almost 1 year ago, 11 months ago, in Jakarta, in Indonesia, to address Bali Declaration introduced by the Indonesian government at COP4. And focus group discussion, from here we call it FGD, was attended by approximately 70 people in person and also online, some online people. And this during FGD meeting, the participants exchanged information about the current status, ongoing efforts, and available tools and resources to combat illegal trade of mercury in Indonesia. And then FGD also discussed further steps needed for combating illegal trade of mercury and also needs on technical support, taking into account the elements recommended or encouraged in the Bali Declaration. So the next slide, I would like to very briefly introduce the key summary of this FGD meeting. So a lot of things has been said by Eva Unique's presentation, but also Latin American activities presentation, and the current situation and the challenges associated with illegal trade, not only necessarily in Indonesia, but our region, Asia Pacific region, is there's primary mining of mercury, and officially there is no primary mercury being carried out, but we all know that there are numerous media reports about illegal activities related to cinnabar mining and also refining, so that more effort could be made to prohibit such illegal activities. Then we also have these challenges of the border control of mercury trade, the trade statistics, and also estimated amount of mercury used in SGM does not match that we already know. And it is highly likely that the mercury is illegally entering to the territory of certain countries. And various routes allow for entry of elementary mercury into the countries, including concealing it in what I've heard was putting in a PET bottle, the water bottle, carried by travelers on passenger ship or even on foot from other countries. So the enforcing border control proves challenging, particularly at the small ports or small cross custom borders. And the custom is also required to intercept different kinds of regulated goods at the border from many shipments. But even with the latest analytical equipment or checking all shipments is not possible. Therefore, typically parameters such as high-risk items, HS codes, exporting country, and confidential intelligence related to importers are used to profile risks and screen selected goods through X-ray and container inspection. And what I've heard from certain countries are that their focus is on, for example, weapon, or they call it yellow cookie uranium, or drugs. So the mercury's focus or priority is very low. So a lot of custom officer does not necessarily know what the risk of mercury, how to handle mercury, or what is Minamata Convention. Those basic information has been really lacking at custom officers, which we found it really interesting because we could actually improve the situation pretty quickly by introducing what is Minamata Convention and what mercury could pose to the human health and environment. And currently, while there exist policies prohibiting imports, no law really exists defining the responsibilities and roles of relevant ministries and agencies for the prevention of illegal trade and the handling of such cases after detection in our region. So without legal ground, effective action becomes challenges for these authorities. And also lastly, the Mercury trade at e-commerce, as we have already known that some cases ASGM miners purchase Mercury on online platform. And it will be really difficult to monitor and impose penalties on small business transaction. And even if an account at the online shop is closed, the transactions can easily take place by using different accounts. So this is very difficult place to address. So next slide, please. And during focus group discussion, we categorized an initiative mentioned in the Bali Declaration as provided in a table and discussed necessary action for 6 categories. And based on Bali Declaration, we identified that the formulation of policy measures or rules are important. However, efforts still need to be, it's been done, but efforts still need to be made to identify legal gap. And the creation of legal basis is prerequisite for the relevant ministry to work together. So actually bringing the policy, bringing lots of necessary relevant stakeholders together, which we found it really helpful. And then the lesson learned from voluntary restriction of trade on regulated items by online platforms such as Amazon, a big company, would also be valuable, we thought. And then the capacity building for identification and monitoring Mercury trade is important since a lot of work has been done by different conventions as well. And also the identification, so we can copy that good practice. And also for identification and monitoring Mercury trade, cooperation between the environment, not only environmental ministry, but also enforcement authorities such as customs and police is necessary. So our FDG brought not only many people from one ministry, but the Indonesian police, Indonesian military people, Indonesian custom people. There are a lot of stakeholders attended, and that was very helpful. And in order to strengthen the capacity building, that kind of bringing a lot of stakeholders are essential. And then awareness raising is important, that has been mentioned, and also promoting regional and international cooperation is important. Then promoting cooperation of research activities and also environmentally sound management of mercury and mercury waste is important. And that has been said by the previous speakers. Next slide, please. So the next step we are going to propose was very similar to what has been done in Latin American region, and understanding the actual flow of mercury, supporting legal system development, the strengthening monitoring capacity for legal trade, public awareness raising, and technology transfer is important. And such activity can be done a lot by the bilateral technical support. But as Latin American region also mentioned that the regional cooperation is extremely important since international trade involves both exporters and importers. And since it is crucial for the countries considering a roadmap to address illegal trade, to prioritize mutual understanding and coordination of regional level efforts, including with exporting countries. Similarly, sharing challenges and also best practices among countries facing challenges in controlling the supply of mercury to SGM can contribute to the promotion of regional level initiative, and we found it very important. And in our region, there's no regional network specific to mercury, but there are many existing regional enforcement network under other MEAs, in particular the experience of Asia network led by MOEJ for the effective regional implementation of Basel Convention can be used as a reference. And Asia is a hotspot of mercury trade, and if such regional network is to be established in Asia, the wide participation of different countries and also including large mercury consuming countries and other ASGM countries and trade hub transit countries would be really ideal. And as I said, cooperation at the global level is of course important, such as Basel Convention, since they have rich experience. And the paragraph 10 of Bali Declaration also emphasized that the study of illegal trade of mercury should combine the socio-economic issues and financial factors, and the role of broader unlawful activities such as corruption and illicit financial flow. So it may be important in the future to identify the available expertise and knowledge and create a regional and global network for experts and researchers in this area. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Suki. This was a really rich, even though we only give you a small amount of time, it was so full of information about through these challenges and what can be done about them. I'm feeling very optimistic about all the work our parties are doing to implement Article 3, even though particularly in light of the online trade and all the risks that that poses to postal workers and delivery order people and the general public, I do feel optimistic about all the work that's being done to tackle all these elements. So I'd really like to thank our panelists and now invite anyone who would like to raise their hand and with any comments, thoughts, or questions for any of our panelists. And I would like to note that within the Secretariat, should you wish to reach out, you can always reach us at the main Secretariat email box. My colleagues Izaku Toda and Lara Onyebene, who you heard from today, are very well placed to be able to answer both legal and technical questions about Article 3 and the trade provisions and other matters under the convention. So we hope to always be available to you for any of your questions or concerns. I'm not seeing any hands raised. My colleagues can let me know if I'm missing any, but I don't see any hands raised. And I also don't see any particular questions in the chat, but you can correct me. Laura's nodding, so I think we're good. Hopefully that means we've been sufficiently comprehensive in the presentations and the information we're sharing with you. And we will do our best to keep you posted, not only on the intersessional work, but also on these implementation tools and training materials available for your further adaptation, use, and working with those tools and training materials to just make them work well for you and your needs. So with that, I think I would like to close this session. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you again to our panelists, really rich information shared, and have a wonderful day or evening, depending on where you are. Thank you all.